What's going on, everybody, and welcome back once again to the channel. Make sure to subscribe and stack that like button. It's been a bit since I've last made a video. The NFL season came to an end, but XFL is now just finished up week 2 yesterday. I'm going to be doing my post week 2 power rankings of the XFL. I did not do power rankings after the week 1 games of the XFL because I was unable to at that time, but I'm making these post week 2 ones now, and I've been enjoying watching this league. This league is pretty fun. But without further ado, let's get into it. If you're unfamiliar with the XFL, you may not know really what I'm talking about in this video, but I really recommend watching it. It's a very fun league. So coming in at number 8, there's 8 teams. I have the Orlando Guardians. The Orlando Guardians, led by quarterback Paxton Lynch, former first-round pick of the Denver Broncos, have not been able to get anything going offensively through 2 weeks. Back-to-back games of 12 points, and Coach Terrell Buckley, former player / Super Bowl champion of the New England Patriots, watching that game yesterday, him on the sidelines because they have coaches mic'd up, he just seemed like he was ready to resign from the job already after 2 weeks. And and I could see where he was coming from. It just felt like the players of that team were really not locked in, not really putting much into it, and they were just getting outdone like they did the previous week. Coming in at number 7, I have the Vegas Vipers. The Vegas Vipers, led by Hall of Fame defensive back Rod Woodson with quarterback Luis Perez. The Vipers, they're sitting at 0-2. Their first game, they easily could have won. They blew the game in the final minutes with a 2-score lead. And then, this past week, they lost 18-6 to the Defenders. But they're another one that, they need some help offensively. The first week, they were able to get it going, throughout most of the way. But then it stalled out in the second half, and that continued into the second game. In fact, their only touchdown in the second game was on a drive that started from the opponent inside the opponent's 5-yard line. Vegas Vipers are definitely not looking good either. Luis Perez, you may remember him from the USFL last season, quarterback for the New Jersey Generals, and he did really well there, but this system does not seem to be working too well right now for this team. Coming in at number 6, I have the Arlington Renegades, who are 1-1, and I have an 0-2 team ahead of them currently. But, I'll get into, that team after. But with the Renegades, their first game, they played a Vipers team that clearly has a lot of issues of their own. And they came back and won in, a weird way. And it just feels like they easily could have lost to that team. Now, this following week, they lost. Like, the Renegades just don't look all that good to me at all. They look sloppy. And their offense, I think, is very inconsistent. Their defense is alright, but they got a lot of work to do offensively, like a lot of teams. Coming in at number 5, I have the Seattle Sea Dragons, who are 0-2, and I have them ahead of the Arlington Renegades. But, to me, the Sea Dragons lost to the Defenders in week 1, who are 2-0. And the Sea Dragons were inside the 5-yard line of the Defenders, and then quarterback Ben DiNucci fumbled the game away. But they easily could have won that game if not for that fumble. And then this upcoming week, this past week on Thursday night, they played another 2-0 team in the St. Louis Battlehawks, who they led pretty much the whole game until the final seconds when St. Louis kicked the game-winning field goal. The Sea Dragons could easily right now be 2-0. But just a couple of things here and there not going their way, and overall their offense has really struggled through the first 2 games. Their defense was what kept them in games. Josh Gordon, however, may be the top weapon in the XFL, and he's on their team. He's been having a really good start so far this season. Coming in at number 4, I have the San Antonio Brahmas, who are now 1-1. Led by head coach Hines Ward, former Hall of Fame wide receiver / Super Bowl champion for the Pittsburgh Steelers. They lost their opening game in a really heartbreaking fashion, a game in which their offense they were winning 15-3 with 2 minutes left. Their offense left the field up 15-3, and never came back on the field and lost the game because of a touchdown by the Battlehawks offense. Then they got the 4th and 15 onside conversion, and then they scored again. They lost in a really wacky way, but they came out and responded yesterday, dominating the Guardians yesterday, and I don't think the score did justify the game, even though they won by 18 points. But the Brahmas, I think, are definitely good. And their quarterback, Jack Cohen, that guy was throwing some dimes. So far, he's been the quarterback that has stood out the most to me out of any of these teams. Coming in at number 3, I have the St. Louis Battlehawks. Their quarterback is A.J. McCarron, won a Heisman with the Alabama Crimson Tide. You probably remember him when he was on the Bengals, and then he, went around a little bit in the league as a backup. He's been playing, up and down, but overall their defense is really what has done it for this team, and they're a cardiac team. The first week, as I just mentioned, they were trailing pretty much the whole game, and then this second week they were trailing pretty much the whole game and came back and won it in the final seconds. So it's going to be interesting to see how they match up against the number 2 ranked team this week when they play in the DC Defenders, another team that has fallen behind early in the first 2 games and then storms back. The DC Defenders, though, look a bit more complete. They were able to, more than come back against the Vipers. They won 18-6. Their defense is another one that looked really good in the first 2 games. Their offense, not as much, but, there is some good work going on there defensively, and a lot of these teams have been using 2 quarterback systems, but the Defenders, they have quarterback Jordan Ta'amu, who, if you remember, he was also in the XFL in 2020 for the St. Louis Battlehawks and did so well then. He was able to get a spot in the NFL. He was on the Kansas City Chiefs 53-man roster, actually, as the 3rd-string quarterback. Then he went to the Washington football team, and then he went to the USFL last year with the Tampa Bay Bandits. Up and down season there last year, but this year now he's on the DC Defenders. But they've been using multiple quarterbacks like a lot of these teams have, but obviously a lot to clean up for a lot of these teams' offense. And then coming in at number 1, I got the Houston Roughnecks, and I don't think there should be much of a debate currently about who's the top dog. They got that blowout win week 1, and now week 2 they were able to win again, and their defense is playing really well, but a lot of defenses have looked good, but their defense looks a notch above all these defenses. Their pass rush is insane. Their pass rush looks like it just completely outmatches all the other offensive lines in this league, which will be a very tough team to beat because of that. And unlike a lot of teams, their offense has been pretty darn good for the most part. Their quarterback, Brandon Silvers, has been playing pretty well, and then they have a rotational quarterback that they bring in to use on read options and run plays of that nature. But their head coach is Wade Phillips, obviously a guy who was around a lot in the NFL, coached a lot of, very good defenses like the Rams and the Broncos in recent memory, and he was the head coach of the Cowboys. So that team, I think, right now is definitely the team to beat. I think they're the best team right now by far, but we'll see how this unfolds. Really enjoyed watching the XFL. I 100% recommend tuning in if you have not already. But other than that, make sure to subscribe and sack that like button for this channel. And yeah, I'll see you guys next time.